All right. So I'm going to talk about research fast and slow. So I gave you the one slide about slow down, and I'm going to try to do this sped up in 10 minutes. So the timer has started. Okay. So how many of you have read Daniel Kahneman's book, Fast and Thinking Fast and Slow? So, very quickly, he describes how he tried to canonicalize a lot of cognitive science into two systems. System one, which is fast, automatic, intuitive, parallel, and associative, versus a more deliberate system two. System two, you have to think about. It is not something you can process in parallel. You have to do it very analytically and logically. Okay, now we have AI, right? So AI, you can think, okay, um, which version of thinking are we talking about here? Is it more like system one or system two? Okay, so you know where I'm going with this. And for those of us who are familiar with machine learning, I give you a 30-second tutorial. Uh, the machine learning side of things is to optimize a loss function, right? And that means, we penalize the system when it's doing things wrong. We never tell it it's doing a good job. We just beat it with a stick and then we say, you shouldn't be doing that. You should be doing other things. So we can train a system for this, but really I want you to think about what's the loss function of research, right? The entire academic of research. How do we want to engineer good research to come out as a way of optimizing? Okay. And so I read this another book written by Thomas Friedman. It's called Thank You for Being Late. And he refers to the age of accelerations. I don't know how many people have read this popular science book. Okay, so it's a great book because he refers to um, the thing about chess, which is the second half of the chessboard, which is that you put one grain of rice on the first board of the chess, and you put two, and then four, and then so you have this exponential doubling. And when you get to the 16th, 32nd space in the chessboard, it starts to get crazily exponential, right? And he said basically there are three accelerations that are all happening simultaneously that are coming together now. One is Moore's Law. We're all familiar with that. Another one he said was globalization. This was before Donald Trump, before the pandemic. So I think these days we think more about sovereignty. Okay. And third is Mother Nature, climate change. So all three of these are hitting us all together. And we need to think about the implications of how that impacts many societal systems, including research, right? I mean, here we are. So a lot of us are concerned about open information systems, and most of that has to deal with metricking, right? And as I sort of made apparent to you yesterday, is that metricking is somehow a signpost for things that could go wrong later. So we have research published, and then there are blog posts, Twitter posts, et cetera, coming out. And then very much down the line, afterwards, we have citations, which are peer-reviewed substantiation use of research, right? But they take months to boil and come. So research can be too fast. Do you agree? Okay. So maybe you know this picture. Who is the scientist in this picture? Okay, I'm really not supposed to do like interaction because it takes time, but I'm going to use up 1 or 2 minutes. The scientist is the machine. The person here is the assistant who's refilling the reagents. The machine is doing all the planning about what biological experiments to do. Okay? And there is a problem here because this is happening to our research now. We are giving away a lot of the locus of control, our agency for doing research, by the way we have created our research paradigm. We have archive, okay? And in Chinese, we have these two words, which in Singaporean language, we would say kiasu, it means afraid to die, okay? So it's FOMO, right? For everyone who knows. This is what our research students experience, right? I have to publish or I will perish. I will not get that postdoc. I will not get that assistant professorship, okay? Secondly, we have GitHub, Jupyter Notebook, all of these other things that make code reproducible. That's a laudable goal, right? But it also means more stress. for our scholars, right? We have shared tasks, especially in NLP, where we all come together as a community to do something. That again sharpens acceleration, but in one point in the research manifold. Okay, I want to give this impression that research is a manifold. Okay, and then metrics. Okay, I told you yesterday, metrics. Okay, I asked GPT to give me a bimodal distribution. This is what it came up with. You know the joke? There are 10 types of people that know binary. Okay, this is what it came up with. All right. And that's a big problem, right? Because junior scholars that we're training now, academics, software engineers, and those of us who are in computer science departments, we see them very, very worried about jobs, right? They say, I can't make it as a junior software developer. I can't outdo an LLM. For heaven's sakes, they're doing my homework for me. I just didn't tell you, right? Okay, and that's a problem because we are going to hollow out. You see the tsunami coming, right? We're going to hollow out the ranks of junior software engineers. All the middle devs will have nobody to talk to because they've been talking to an LLM. Okay, and our junior software engineers are going to say, I can't do this. I can't troubleshoot LLM code because I don't even have the capability of producing code, right? It's the same as being able to read a story and write a story. Completely different. Okay. So we need to give them that experience and tell them that is something you need to do. You need to write stories because you're going to be an offer later. You can't delegate it to ChatGPT to do. And the key point here, I think, is this word up here, agency. If they don't have agency, then they don't know what they can do. And we really risk that with AI. So the loss function of research. So if you pretend we're all little dots, vectors, if you will, in this space, okay? And it's not equal. There are some parts that are better than others, okay, in terms of scientific progress. But what we are doing is doing this. We're magnifying which parts of the landscape we want to push people to because archive, because GitHub, because shared tasks, because metrics. There are certain things that are good to do, easy to do, and we make them easier. And the harder things that we might say have some payoff, we are making harder because of the choices in what we are doing here in this room. Okay? This is my hot take, right? Okay? So accelerations that we saw in those last slides, they make the gradient steeper. It makes it much easier for graduate students to say, heck, I'm just going to clone the GitHub repository. I'm going to make some incremental changes. I'm going to send 5 papers to NeurIPS next year. Never mind the reviewers who have 29,000 papers to review. Okay? So overload favors the convenience, right? Because I need to compete. I need to survive. I need to get that academic job. But look at this manifold. I've already told you, not all the things are in the pools which have heavy deep reservoirs. Okay, there is something nice on the outer parts, but if we sharpen the gradient, we risk losing people that are interdisciplinary, that are doing things that are not GitHubable, not reproducible. Okay, and that's a problem, right? Because we, as scholars, we're humans. We can't do random restart as you can do with a machine learning system. You can't just pick up a researcher and say, oh, you spent 3 years of your life doing this? I'm throwing you over there. Okay? You can't do that. It doesn't work. Here is a neat summary of the current state of interpretation of skull comparisons in biological anthropology. Who's that? We all laugh, right? Hmm. But is it wrong? We are also making it easier for reviewers to find defensible positions. We use AI, we use other things, and we say, oh, sorry, not state of the art, not statistically significant. Okay, I can defend that. It says there, right there, not good enough, not enough data sets, whatever. Okay? Sorry, you don't meet the bar. You can't cross. But I have an idea. It's something out of depth. It's not something that's been tried before. Will you let me do it? No. Guess what? Even professors with tenure can't do that because our funding agency stopped them, right? So, who is your reviewer to? We all know them. Is it your head of department? Is it some funding agency person who's stopping you from doing your fund or your research that's really groundbreaking? Are we to blame for making metrics that enable this? Maybe you've heard this word before. Okay. I'm not going to say it out loud because I am recording it and putting it on YouTube. Okay. But this was coined by Dr. Rowe, right? He said that when you create a platform, right, you try to get more people to use your platform. And then afterwards, you monetize it. You optimize the hell out of it. And then it stops serving the purpose that we wanted it to do, right? The purpose was to serve science. And my hot take is we're not doing a good job of that. So that was the first part of my talk. Oh my God. Sorry. Okay. So it's not fair. And this will go into Carol's talk a little bit. So I'm going to talk about fair principles. We all know them. And I would say you can't spell fair without AI. AI is meant to be there. Okay. And that is because fairness supports AI. In fact, the whole principles of fair, as Carol will tell you, is by design supposed to use AI. Okay. And I'm not going to go into that, but I will tell you, I think findability is not something that we want to delegate to AI. We want to maintain our human mandate to curate what we want to do. All right. Because we don't want AI echo chambers. So I think we take the F out of this, we take accessibility, interoperability, and reusability and say, AI, you can do these parts. They're not curation processes, okay? They are the mundane completeness part that a lot of us care about, deduplication, merging, etc., of offer profiles. But then we need to curate it. That is our job. We're humans. We want to decide what we should be doing in science. So we build our tools, we build our metrics, but in turn, they dictate what we do. And we have to be very sharply aware of that. So I argue A, I, R, these are system one things. We are left to do system two. So system two comes from another book, okay? Stephen Johnson, he's written this really nice book, Where Good Ideas Come From. And he has the adjacent possible liquid network slow hunch, serendipity, error, acceptation, and platforms as way of accomplishing system two. And if you haven't read this book, I urge you to take a look. Okay. And I think many people of this in the room know Kuhn, right? Who said that paradigm shifts only happen when there's enough accumulated information about what's wrong and to make that paradigm shift. And I argue that all of the AIs in the room, okay, they can do a lot of system one. They can do that incremental research that's leading to those 29,000 papers at AAAI, but they can't do system two. System two requires us to look beyond the obvious lamppost outside the bar, okay, to find our keys. We need to do that. Okay, I'm going to skip this slide, but it's there for you to take a look at later on what system two means in terms of Stephen Johnson's parts. And I'm just going to argue that we really need to do more system one, system two. And here's a reference to Dagstuhl. This is why I traveled all the way from Singapore to come here. It's because I don't want to listen to my talk. I want to listen to your discussion, right? This is why we're in this room, right? We want to develop the slow hunch to say, what is the power of bringing people together in a liquid network where we're all reforming colliding with people who we don't know in interdisciplinary points. And that is exactly why our organizers organize so many heterogeneous people to be sitting right here now, today. Flatten the manifold. So one thing that I think we can do is decide, okay, as a group, maybe what we want to do when we're training is to think about system one, meaning low recall. So admissions office do this all the time. They say there's a threshold. We need an SAT score. We need a GRE score of a certain amount. We need certain number of papers produced by our faculty to promote. But above that, it's up to you. You as a student, you as a assistant professor, you need to make the case for me in 500 words, three stories, no more. Okay? Why your research is important, why you should be in this university, why am I funding your goddamn research? Okay? That is what I think we need to do to get better precision. That requires system two, because only humans have narratives. Only humans have stories. We are not metrics. Okay. So research slow, the challenge of a story. Okay. So there's this famous story by Hayao Miyazaki. If you watch anime, he says there's an agricultural society that becomes industrialized. They get to the point where they can make flying cities, and then they have some technological crash. And then they come back to being an agricultural society. So all of these types of stories, they give context. And we have to tell that story when we are transmitting our research, transmitting our ideas to the public. So we have to do that because our research lives in a context. We have to understand where it's coming from. So I ask you, what's your problem? You know, how do we transmit your problem? How do we understand what we are trying to do in research? Okay. Yeah. So this is the second to last slide. Sorry, I tried to put this down. So research flow has to deal with human adaptability, right? Research fast has to do with how fast technology can go. And there is a gap here. The gap is individuals can go quick, humanity cannot. And so what we need to make sure to do is to use the time that we're saving when we are doing research fast, because things are much better than 10 years ago, even though I ran out of time, okay, is that we can use that for doing systems too, right? We can say for every X papers, for every 10 papers, I tithe some percentage of my time to do interdisciplinary research, to do things that are beyond metrics, to allow, as a department head, people who are not metric, that are exceptional, right? And I will be able to defend that. So that's my presentation. So I hope maybe you can come to Singapore. And if you want to work on a proposal for October 19th, let me know.